All right, hello, this is Pastor George Namek from Narrowway Baptist Church in Pangolin County in Alberta. We're just outside of the capital city of the province, Edmonton. And why am I here today? The reason I'm making this presentation is because obviously COVID-19 and COVID-19 has had a huge impact on myself, my family, our church, on the whole province, on the whole country, and really on the whole world. Everybody has been impacted by this so-called pandemic. It's almost like World War II or something. It really is very unique and strange. And so, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of speculation, a lot of propaganda, and I'm tired of it. I'm just tired of it. We have to rely on data given us by media that are spinning it a certain way, and somebody needs to make them accountable and bring the truth about what's really happening. Now, I could go to many directions with the impact of COVID-19 on our population, but I will strictly focus on only a few parameters. And that is a death rate in the province of Alberta, as this first bullet point says. I'm going to look at the impact of COVID-19 on the overall death rate in the province of Alberta. I suspected somewhere in May or something like that last year that we will not see COVID-19 on the chart of statistical charts of, let's say, death rates or population growth if you, let's say, look at it 10-20 years down the road. I believe that when it's 2030, 2040, and we are giving a chart and there's not going to be years given, it's just a line, we're not going to be able to see the pandemic. Now, we were scared, we were being massaged by different people and media and so-called experts that the world is about to end, that we are going to lose millions of people. And all right, we went with the program. We were not sure. It was this unknown threat, and unknown threat is always the worst because you never know where it's gonna hit you. And so we went with the program, but after a while, we started realizing that there's something fishy about this whole pandemic. But anyway, we were just speculating. We were not sure, and so we were cooperating. But now it's exactly 12 months. Today is March 2nd or 3rd, and we can actually look 12 months back. Data is available to us, and we can actually examine what exactly happened, how many people died, how did it affect the population growth, and so on. And so that is the purpose of this presentation, to just look at the facts. Second point of this presentation, and that is to review Alberta population growth and its impact on the province. It will become apparent as we go through the presentation what I mean by that. Number 3, we're going to evaluate Alberta overall strengths and weaknesses, which I believe that the COVID-19 has exposed and underlined. And as a side note here, it is important to realize that this research and analysis is based on strictly government official data. I'm not speculating, I'm not using some kind of third-party, unofficial source. Everything is official government data. Now, also, to be completely transparent, all the data, all the charts are based on the data that anybody can download. And to make your life easier, and also to be transparent, I am listing all the resource information at the last page of this presentation, and also it will be in the link below in the description part of this YouTube video. All right, so without further ado, let us proceed and go to the first chart. Now this one is relatively easy. and it basically shows the death rate in Alberta. Obviously, every province, every country will have it slightly different. But here we are in Alberta, so we're going to examine the death rate in our province here. Now, death rate, that's the on the side here. That's the scale. These are the measures, and it's in percentage points. So basically, what it is, it's people that die every year. We have a certain amount of people that die, and we take that number of people and divide it by the total population number, and so it gives us some percentage point. What is the percentage of people that we lost any given year? And so we can see that it's been sort of a stable and kind of hovering at around 0.58%. So that's about 0.5%. So it's very little, but obviously every life counts. We don't want to lose anybody, but that's kind of the reality of life. Everybody has to die. And so we've been roughly at about 0.58%. Then it kind of dipped to about 0.56%, and I'm not going to study why. It will be definitely interesting to study. But then it kind of turned back, and it's been steadily rising up with a few dips. For example, this was a huge increase right here between 2016 and 2017. All right. And of course, we have also the increase of deaths in between 2020 to 2021. So in a year, that number jumped from 0.60% to 0.615 roughly. All right. Now, at the face value, somebody can look at it and say, "What are you talking about? You said you're not gonna be able to see COVID on a chart." Well, there it is. All right. Well, again, I think it was Winston Churchill that said that he doesn't believe other people's charts. He only believes those that he made himself. And so I will encourage you, whatever you look at, go ahead and make your own chart. The data is available. It's the official data. That's what I can go with, and that's what everybody else can go with. But obviously, this chart seems to indicate that we've had an increase of deaths in comparison to the overall population, including the past year. So some people say, well, see, that's it. This is COVID. Well, not so fast. All right. This is an addition to this chart, and that's the scale on the left side. So this dotted white line represents the average age of Albertan going from 1992 to present day. So in about 30 years, we have increased from about 33 years old as an average age to about 38 or 38 and a half in 2020. And you can see it's very consistent up. It just goes up like a bulldozer. There's no ups and downs. It just goes steadily up. This is very strong momentum and trend that is just amazing. So why is that? Well, there could be a lot of speculation, but again, we don't want to speculate. We want to look at other charts to explain it to us what exactly is happening. Some people may just quickly judge and say, well, that's because we're getting more healthier. We're getting vaccines, and we're getting better food and more food, and we're just happy people. All right, that could be an explanation, but maybe it's something else. All right, this chart will explain it. We can go to 1971, so we're going to go 50 years back. And of course, it will be useful to go even farther, but I only got data that goes down to 1971. And so in 1971, this was a distribution of the population by age. So this is the number of people. So let's say 150,000, 200,000. And these are different age categories. And so this category is children between 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, teenagers here, young adults, middle age group, retired people, and very old. So that's how it was in 1971. 10 years later, that thing shifted to the right. In other words, there were more people. Actually, the majority of the population were in this group, which is between, let's say, 15 to 35 years old. That was the most populous segment of the society. All right, the young people were slightly low, maybe, but let's just say sustained. And you can also see that there were more people, because this goes up, there were more people in that category of society. But this may be strictly because of population growth. This is not necessarily shift in the proportion of these people. I think from here and on, the proportion really remains relatively stable. But there's a big shift from young people to this young teenagers and young adults. 1980, we saw another shift, right? And next year was 2020, so it's every decade. You can see that it shifts to the right, all right? Then we have 2010, that's just 10 years ago, and then finally 2020. And then you will see that this peak, it just keeps going to the right. And that's just because that this population, along with immigrants and other people, is just shifting. Obviously they don't go away, they're just getting older. So now this group is here, then here, then here, then here, and then here. And then we had in 2020, here we have actually the majority of group is roughly right here between 25 to let's say 45 years old. And then we have another blip right here, pretty important segment of the society, 50 to 64. You can see it's steadily rising up. Some of these groups are going really high and so on. All right, so that's the distribution shift between 1970 to 2020 to the current day. Now this chart will take us down to actually 1920. And what this is called the Alberta population pyramid. So basically what it is, you have how many people are born into the society. On the right side you have females, on the left side you have males. And so it's roughly balanced, obviously. Amazing thing when you think about it, by the way. So we have that. And you can see it just starts again. So there we go. So now we are in 30s. You can see that there were certain very heavy population blocks. And then this was a world time. And after the war, there was a sort of a population boom. A lot of children were born. But that kind of receded. And then we were at about, 0.7 to 0.8% of our overall population of children, of people being in that society. All right, so this is each of these links represent 1 year. One line here that represents children between 0 to 1 year old. All right, so let's say in 2020, that's where this chart ended. In 2020, children that are between newborn and 1 year old represent, roughly not even 0.6% of the society. All right, that's just girls. If you add to the boys, which you have to, then that's about roughly 1.2%, about 1.2% today. I will argue this would require more explanation, but I will argue for a healthy society to have a sustainable growth and sustaining a population and a healthy society. You need to be somewhere between 0.9 to 1 per gender. In other words, roughly total, you want to have about at least 1.5 to 2%, and that's the minimum of children being born to just sustain the population. So I will just make these little boundaries here, just so that we can kind of keep an eye on it. Let's just put it somewhere here. All right, this is what we would like to see in a healthy society to be. We want to be here. This histogram, we want to have it on the outside of these boundaries. All right, so let's just do this animation one more time with the boundary place. So you can see in 1930s we had that group that was there. The young people then in 1940s, between 1940 to let's say 1965, there were a lot of children being born, but pretty much ever since then, we never got beyond that line. All right, this is 2000, 2010 now here, 2020. All right, let's do it again. This is 1930s down here, 1940, 1950, 1960, 1970. So pretty much from late 60, and that's remember that number. Let's say 1968, 1970, we have been down below, I don't know, 0.7%, 1.4 percent of the overall population, and right now we are actually not even 1.2, like 1.15% of the overall population. We have very little children born today compared to the past, and this trend sort of started. This trend really accelerated in late 60s, 1970, and so on. Okay. Now this is just another chart that will shed some more light on what's happening, but it's just a different way to look at the same trend. Again, I'm just repeating the average age trend. So this is the same line that we saw in previous chart. So remember, we were going from about 33 years old or something like that to about 38. So the age has gone up by about 5 years in 50 years. Now that may not sound like a lot, but it's obviously a huge difference. All right. Now why is that? I want you to notice these layers. They represent different age groups. So this relatively light strip that represents really young children. So between the birth and let's say 14 years old. And you can see that there were about, I don't know, 33% in 1971. And that's a percentage of the overall population. Today, it's about 16 to 17%. So in other words, at the beginning of this trend, 50 years ago, there were double amount of children than there are today. I think that's pretty significant. Now, next group is between 15 to 30, and that's this pink line. And again, that was maybe about 30%, and probably down to about 20%. So also huge reduction from 30 to 20%. So that's another another big drop. The next group is 30 to 45, and that group is actually increased. It goes from this number, I don't have the number, but it's probably about 15%, and we're probably at about 25% here. What is it? This is 14 and 24, so it's about 20% of the society is a group of people between 30 to 45 years old. And then we have next group is 45 to 60. Next group is 60 to 75, 75 to 90, and then the little strip up here, that's people that are 90 and older. Now, a few things to register on this chart. You can see that there was a lot of people here. The big percentage of the population were children. Now, you can see that actually in this next layer, you can see it actually widened. It's bigger than it was at the beginning of 70s. Now, that's the only reason for that is because these people, they just grew up and they just shifted to this generational group. And you will see that farther on, these people have shifted here and then shifted here and then shifted there. Of course, these represent people that also were maybe baby boomers, but that does not show on this chart because remember, from that chart, from that pyramid chart that we saw before, that actually there were big baby boomer years in between 1940 to 1965. Huge boom, I think peaking at about 58, 60. And so those people, let's say anybody born in 1940 would be today 80 years old. So they will fall into this category right here, right? That's the people, we see them right here. So they are not on the chart on the left side. They were born way before. They're more like I don't know if I. They're more like they're not showing in this chart. Okay, so the what is the significance of this chart? Again, it just shows us a clear trend, and that is that we have a proportion of the society that is young and productive actually declining. We are from, let's say, this overall group of people, let's say, between children to, let's say, I don't know, 50 years old. That's about 50%, right? Is society, 80%, all right? Now that same group today is about 60%. So a huge shift. And of course, by the same amount, we have a shift from 20% of older part of the population increase doubling, just go to 40%. So I think that's significant. Why is that? This chart explains a little bit, but not everything. Let's move to another chart. Now this diagram shows two charts. Now on the left side, we have a scale for these lines, for these stacked columns, and that is basically how many children lived in a particular year, aged 4 and under. So we had about a little bit over 150,000 living in the province of Alberta in 1971. In comparison to that, let's say in 2020, we have, about 270,000 children living in the province of Alberta. Children that's 4 years and under. All right, but it's interesting to notice it because you can see funny things. What happens? You can see certain trends, certain events, certain short-term trends. For example, here we had sort of a plateau, but then we had growth between, let's say, 1976 to 1982. Also, we had a growth between, let's say, 2002 to 2012, about 10-year, pretty strong trend. There were just more children born. Then it sort of plateaued, and now it seems to be slightly declining. All right. There was another decline that was here, and then it kind of leveled up right here, and then it went back up. And I'd say for the comfort of anybody, maybe we can reverse the trend. But even the good years are actually not good enough. Right? These are obviously good years, but they're not good enough, and I'll explain why. This next chart actually explains. So this line, this white line, is a percentage point of the group of children 4 years and under as a percentage of the total population of the province. So you can see here we are roughly at about 9%. Down here we are at 6%. So the portion of children in 1971 of the society was significantly higher, and if we wanted to get back up where we were in 1971, we would have to increase by 50% of these children. It's a huge deficit. Now, somebody may not see this as a problem. I think it's a huge problem. We like to brag about Alberta being strong and free. And I appreciate that it's not necessarily maybe assessment, more like a motto, so that we can be proud of our province and strive for something strong and bold. But if we want to really be bold, then we should seriously look at a chart like this and consider the effect of what's happening here. This is a serious problem. It's not as bad as in other places in the world, like we know that Japan is in a serious trouble. In Japan, the biggest consumer of diapers are not children anymore, it's the adults. And that's kind of sad picture. Now, I want to add to this diagram, sort of alter it, and add to it another layer. It's something I will talk about here and there throughout the rest of this presentation. And I'm going to add in the background, we still see that previous chart. I hope everybody can see that. Right here, you can see that previous chart we saw on a previous slide. So it remains here so we can compare it. Now, what is these blue columns? What do they represent? They represent the number of children in a province that would have existed if they were not killed in abortion clinics. Abortion became legal in Canada in 1969, I think. And so that difference between children being born and could have been born is increasing. Here it was this small, now it's this big. Okay? Today, this number is about 13,000 people. 13,000 people are dismissed and not allowed to be born every year in Alberta. In Canada, it's 105,000 children killed every year. That's every decade. That's over 1 million people. That's a crime. It's wrong. It's evil. And I realized that people sugarcoat it. I also realized that some people put themselves in trouble because of wrong lifestyle choices and so-called accident, but it shouldn't be accident. But it happened. But to fix somebody's inconvenience with killing a child in their womb is just bad. We cannot pretend that God is just going to wink at that. And it is once again we see this trend line. This would be the proportions of the population in let's say 1974, which would be above 9%, slightly higher. It would have been good. But today, if children were born that were not allowed to be born, we would be at about 7.25%. So the situation would be better. But it's still not good enough. You can see that it's still declining. Even with abortions, if abortions were illegal, it is still coming down. It's not level. We'd be happy if we could see it this way. Then we would say, hey, all we have to do is just stop abortions. But there is another important factor that contributes to this steady decline in the portion of children being part of a society. Now, this is just another chart that basically explains the same thing. You can see the number of children per family. It doesn't take much to realize that to sustain a society, every parent, and if every person marries and have children, then they have to have at least 2 children to sustain the level of society as it is. And I realize it's a more complex formula. And since not every young person marries, then that means that the rest of the population have to have more than 2. All right. So this is in some sort of a perfect world. If let's say everybody married, then you would have to have at least 2 children just to keep even. And so you can see that until 1984, the number of children born to a family was higher than 2, and after that it's lower and it's declining. Now there was a very sharp decline right at the beginning. All right. So what happened there? What happened? What happened here? And then of course we have this trend, and then we have a plateau. What happened here? Something psychologically happened to our society. And by the way, this is not unique to Alberta. This is all over the world, especially Western world. There is countries and there are states that are actually increasing in numbers, but Western world, just about everywhere, is declining and only growing in population because of immigration. So why is this? We know that the world is actually growing in number, but not in the West. Not in the West. So I think this is pretty sad. If we add to it again the children that were aborted, then that number would have been a little better, but we will still dip under 2. So this would be partial solution if actually people were not ending the lives of their young ones in their wombs. It would have improved instead of being down to 1.4 children per family, we would be probably at 1.75. But of course, we need to be above 2. And I'd say even more above 2. We need to be above, somewhere 3 and higher. All right, we're going to go to the next slide. This is a chart of all the births, and this is pretty self-explanatory. We just see here how many children were born per year from 1971 to 2017. And this chart is incomplete because I don't have the data. I just couldn't find it anywhere. And so we'll have to kind of speculate where the heck is it. But I think we can guess where things are from other charts that will give us some kind of indication of what's been happening in the last 3 years. Again, let me just show you some trends. We see here a lot of children born. We see here children born and here children born. All right, so that's positive. That was good. But remember, on the previous slide, let me just go back. It is still no, not this one. No. Remember this curve? It is still coming down. It's not going down as sharply as if with the abortions, it wouldn't have gone as sharply, but it's still coming down. All right, so what is obviously a concern are these little declines, this decline, and this decline. This is where we are right now. And I don't know how is it here. Maybe it's like this. I really don't know. But why is this? 2015, it was a very depressive year, right here. 2014, 2015. Something, it was pretty hard. Obviously, Alberta was economically hit with the decline of the oil business, and the boom was sort of over. And so this is where we are now. People are probably depressed. Also, that's probably one of the reasons why people abort their children, is because they feel they cannot economically afford it. All right, but I think money has to go aside. I mean, it's very important to raise the next generation. So that's what we have seen. I want you to notice that even in the years where we were going harsh up, pretty steep curve, actually even in those years, the population of the children were still declining. And that is because even though this is going up, it's not going up enough. It would probably have to go up this. Change the color just to keep this consistent. Where are we? Too much ahead. Here. All right. Okay. We would have to be probably something like this. Something like this. In order to reverse the trend of a decline of our young people in a society and the future of the province. Now, as before, I'm adding obviously another segment to this chart, and that is the children that would have been born. I'm a little bit repetitive, and so there doesn't have to be said much, but it's still worth explaining. Look at this number of abortions at the early 70s, where abortion just were getting available. Then we were to 4,000, 6,000, 6,500, 9,000, 11,000, 13,000, and where are we going? All right, so this is obviously a very sad trend. The funnel is increasing, and right now, let's say in this year where we had a peak of births, we had about 57,000 children born. Let me just do a quick math, and so let's just say 57,000 plus 13.3, so let's say 70,000. 13.3 divided 70.3, about 19%. So this segment of children represents 19, almost 20% of the total number of conceived children in those years. 20%. We take 20% tax in the number of children, you just give it to the death. You just sacrifice them, get rid of them. That is not good. All right, next slide. Here we're talking about population, Alberta population versus deaths. So first of all, this first chart, the blue one, that just shows the overall population of the province, and you can see that it's just steadily going up. At first sight, it just seems to be just steadily going up. I'm going to print here a bit of a trend line. If I can do it right, it may take a few attempts. About it, pretty good job actually. So you can see that that the trend line is a little bit exponential. It's not perfectly linear, and it should be actually going exponentially. Now, how is that if the children are not being born? Of course, because of immigration. If this was not there, the line would go down here, all right? But because of immigration, it keeps going up. But of course, something happened here. You can see that it kind of widely opens. What happened right here? Right here happened 2014 and 2015. Remember that number? That obviously were the year where, first of all, some people left the province because the jobs dried up. It was a pretty serious problem. A lot of people lost income. And people moved back to East, moved to British Columbia, left the country altogether. And so we've seen actually a decline of not decline population. The population is still rising, but it's not rising as sharply. All right, so we have this gap between the trend, and it's almost like we're starting a new trend, like a new curve. We'll see if that's going to ever be reversed. I don't believe so. Now this other part down here, these white lines right here. What is that? Well, that refers to the numbers that are here on the right side. The blue chart is referred here on the left side. You can see that in 1971 we were about 2.7 million people, and we are right now at about 4.4. So that's what happened. We grew from in 30 years by that amount. Now this other chart is still following the years, but it's reflected on the scale on the right side, and it represents how many people died per year. So you can see that the population curve is going up, and so is the death curve. All right, the death curve is growing up. Now, it's important to realize that a lot of people probably left the province, and yet this trend line is not disturbed because the old people stayed. So that actually contributes to that. Remember that trend in the beginning of the chart? This chart gives an explanation to it. Let me just jump there real quick. Let's just go to the beginning, and right here. From let's say we were hovering at about 0.58%, but roughly from here, all right, we were just going up. Now, why is that? It's not COVID. It's because, and now let me just jump now back again. It's because of this gap. That's one of the reasons, maybe not the only one, but definitely major reasons why we see suddenly a spike. So it has nothing to do with actually some kind of change in lifestyle of the people and so on. It's just the overall population decline, but the people still, the old people are still here, and they're dying here. All right. Now also, what I want to show, and of course, majority of people that die are old. Right. Obviously, there's young people that die as well, but that's not that big portion. Let me just make some remarks here. Let's just use yellow. Here I'm the dotted line, the yellow dotted line, that represents a trend of deaths. So for example, today the white line, that's about 20, I think it's about 27,500 people died in 2020. And in 1982, it was roughly, I don't know, what is it? I guess about 16,000 people. So the number is going up. Now I want you to notice that these numbers slightly oscillate from the trend line. And let's use different color for marking. And I want you to notice that certain years were really above the trend line. Like for example, this one. Even this one is kind of quite a bit above the trend line. Maybe even this one. Then there is other one. They're maybe not so severe, but they're still above the trend line. Like this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. All right. This one and this one, which is the last year. That's the year of COVID, right? To realize that. Then, of course, we were at years where we were actually going down, and it was sort of positive. You know, suddenly the rate was low, lower than usual. You know, especially down here. Wow, some good years. You know, and these are real deaths. This is not some kind of ratio. This is real deaths. And of course, you have other years that were kind of below the trend line. But in general, it sort of oscillates up and down. And I don't know why it suddenly went down below and kind of stayed below. I don't know. It will be interesting to look into it. I'm sure there is an explanation. But I want you to notice, and that's the first sort of a warning sign here, that kind of contradicts maybe some of the first assumptions we could have made from the first slide, that the increase of deaths is merely should be contributed to the COVID-19. But according to this chart, we're not really that much out of normal. We're kind of along the trend line. I don't know if I'm the only one seeing this, but I think it should be noted. Just look at this. It is right on the trend line. And I bet you it will just, you know, keep coming up and maybe drop a little. Just continue with the trend line. So nothing amazing really happened, even though we had this so-called pandemic. Now, okay, just for the completion, let's just add what the population would have been if we had not aborted our babies. This is what it would be. We would have been this number, we wouldn't be at 4.4 million, we would be at roughly 4.9. In other words, about 500,000 people were cancelled. That's the kind of wonderful, strong, and free country we are. And of course, this sort of a thing is very typical. But I want to make an interesting point that I actually look into. And remember the crazy number, 105,000 children aborted in the whole of Canada. In Alberta alone, you know, we are looking at about 13 to 14, 12 to 14,000, I guess it a little bit oscillates, children every year right now. Now, that may sound like a huge number, but hey, this is conservative province. We actually have some values like the East, let's say the Laurentian elite and the liberal part of Canada, they don't have. Well, actually, I looked into it. I actually learned that Alberta kills more children per population than the rest of the Canada. Just keep that in mind. I'm not sure if we are the first. I didn't look deep into it as much. But Alberta, the wonderful free province, actually is killing more children than the rest of the country. So make anything out of it that you want. I think that's pretty interesting. All right, let me just go back here. Remember this line that we were looking into, the death rate. We're gonna find it here again, and that's basically this line. All right, this is the line that we saw on the previous slide. But the purpose of this diagram, it will actually show us why people die. What are the causes? And of course, I cannot really go to much detail. There is tons of different reasons why people die, and those little reasons, those smaller varieties, just lump them all into this gray zone, and that represents just everybody else. All right, so I'm not going to pay attention to the breakdown in this group, this is basically all other. All right. But I was specifically looking at certain causes, and I just wanted to know what they represent. So I want you to know actually this little bitty thin line right here, right? That actually is a group, and what that represents is all the homicides. These are homicides, and it's about, I don't know, it's about 60 per year. So this is what you see in newspapers of somebody killed, shot in Edmonton and places like that. Homicides are bad. We have police force and they look for the criminals, and I'm glad they do. But this white group, that's another thing I wanted to pay attention to. And what is that? That's significantly wider than the homicides, right? Well, that's suicides. And that's about 600. It's about 600 people die by just taking their own life. And I want you to notice that it's relatively stable. Now, this particular chart ends in 2019, so we don't have the number in here from 2020. But I will show you that number later on and make some comment about it. So that's suicide, 600. Now, this is just accidents. So this will be road accidents, flight accidents, drowning, accidental poisoning, and falling from the roof, that sort of thing. So that's accidents. Now this is the number 2 reason why people die in this province, which is dying on heart disease, cardiovascular diseases. And the biggest one, that's the green zone, that's cancer. And to put some number to it, heart diseases, it's about 5,000 as of this year, and cancer is about 7,000. And of course, there's tons of different cancers, so I just lump them all together. Now, why is that? I don't know. I guess people have to die somehow, and maybe it's the heart that just gives up. I don't know, but it may have something to do with our diet, our lifestyle, maybe obesity, cancer, certainly, maybe the kind of stuff we put in our bodies, fast food, and who knows what. So that's pretty significant. Number 1, you have a high, I hate to make it sound like this, but you have a high chance, maybe 25% of all the deaths in the province are caused by cancer. And if you add to it heart, then it's going to be almost half, maybe 40% of the total causes of death in the province of Alberta. But again, I cannot help myself. I think we need to recognize other deaths that are not registered in the log of the Alberta healthcare system for the causes of death in this province. And that's abortions. This is the biggest monster. This is the number 1 killer in Alberta. So remember, we kill today about 13,000 children per year. That's 13,000 right here. Remember, it was 7 and 5, 7,000 for cancer, 5,000 for heart, so it's about 12,000. That's almost the same. So I'd say that's almost equal to abortions. And then the rest will be almost the same. So let's just say that this represents, let's say, 40%, which is all other, and homicides, suicides, and accidents, and everything like that. And then these would represent, let's say, 30% or less than 30%, just for the simplification reason. Let's just say 30%. Abortion is the number 1 killer in Alberta. And however unpleasant it may sound, we need to face it. We cannot just hide and put our heads in the sand because of this terrible, terrible practice that the Western civilization has sank into. This is not a healthy society. This is not Alberta strong and free. Children should be protected and safeguarded and loved instead of slaughtered. All right, we're going to start talking about COVID-19. Remember, that's what this presentation was primarily about. So we are going back to that. Now, remember here in this slide once more, remember this line, okay? So we're going to look at the now the same chart, just shown as columns, and you can see that it's steadily growing. Every year, the number of deaths are going up, literally every year, except one point right here. It slightly declined right here. I want you to pay attention to what I'm saying now. There was a slight decline, you know. Flat would be here, but actually it is down. It's slightly down. And I don't know why is that. It could be just anomaly. I don't know. But most of the time, just literally every year, it's going up. Now I'm going to draw here a trend line for the last 10 years because it's pretty significant. So let's just say from here, 2009 to 2020, we have a sort of a straight linear trend line, right at. And why is that significant? Well, because, and okay, let me segue now. This is 2020, the last one. The last one is 2020, right here. Now this yellow spot up here, that's according to the Alberta registry or Alberta healthcare system. This is the number of people that die on COVID-19. And this is the rest of the deaths. All right. Now, do I have to say more? Do I have to say more? It's perfectly within the expected death rate. You can expect it because of the trend line. And so the people that die on COVID, they just filled the gap that would have been. Now let's just talk about the gap. You know, you open a newspaper or TV and I say how terrible it is. People died on COVID. And of course, it's always terrible when somebody dies. Somebody wants to bank it over my head that I don't care about people dying. I actually care more people about dying than most people actually do. But we are basically told that if it was not for COVID-19, you know, within 12 months, 1,880 people died in Alberta on the symptoms of COVID-19. We are told that if this didn't happen, then we would have retained 1,880 people in this province. And how wonderful would it be? And I don't want to mock it. I just want to show the pure deception of it. It's not true. If this was true, they are basically telling us that actually the death rate would go down like this. Okay, I don't want to be lying. Let's be more accurate about this. All right, it would go down here. Remember, it never happened except in 1 year, right here. It went down, but it would be even sharper. Now, how likely is that? How likely is that suddenly, for no reason, the death rate would actually drop significantly by a significant amount? All right, we're talking about what is it? I think that's about 27,500. Let's say 80 divided 27,500. Well, 7%. You know, 7% in a big population like this. What would happen that suddenly people would suddenly the 1 year just would not die? You know, you would have to say, what the heck happened? What are we doing so good that suddenly people stop dying so much? All right, and likewise, if you had suddenly a big jump, let's say this number was suddenly like this, then we'd say, what happened? Right? Well, people would say COVID happened. That's what I think we should be expecting in a chart. Something like this for the COVID, for that year. But there is no difference. So let me just explain what probably happened. The people that were going to die, they died. Now, there was probably a little bit different mix of people that died in 2020 than they would if COVID-19 didn't happen. But it would be roughly that number. And of course, again, if you just listen to this presentation, take it too personally, as if I am suggesting that I don't care about your loved one that you lost. I suffered too. We lost somebody that affected our church. And so I understand. Every personal death is obviously a thorn, and it's a sad thing. That's why we preach gospel, so that people also recognize that there is a hope after life. But I suggest the amount of people that died last year would die anyway. What I also see in this chart, that there's just no impact of COVID on the demographics of Alberta. It's just very insignificant. It will become more apparent as we look at some other slides. And again, let's keep it consistent. To keep it in the context, let's add to it the children we actually kill. See, this is a problem. That's why I want to talk about abortion, because this is completely preventable. Just love the children. Not this. That would happen anyway. And this is why we close the economy, the province, close the businesses, close the churches, and put a pastor in jail. Because of this, that would happen anyway. I don't know, why is nobody talking about this? Why are we not told the truth? Why are we told that there is this crisis going on when there is no crisis? Right, so this is a different slide. Now, anybody can go to, I forget where I exactly have it, anybody can download it. Again, the link is below. This is a number of cases in Alberta from the beginning of the outbreak to today. So from roughly, I think the first case was in March 8 or 9, and that person recovered. There was one person, I think, or 8 people maybe, but they all recovered. And then today. So this is a chart that shows 12 months. So it's a 1 year. It's just not a calendar year. So at the peak, which was roughly in the middle of December, we had 12,000 cases per month diagnosed. Now, this chart I don't believe is completely accurate, because there's probably a lot more cases, but they were never reported. People just cured, or maybe the symptoms were very mild. They didn't even recognize they have a COVID. So we have to go with this data that the Alberta healthcare system logged into their system. Now down here below, these are the little red ones, and I apologize, it's so small red, but that's just the reality of it. These are the deaths. That's how many people died on these symptoms, typically respiratory symptoms and so on. So just keep it in mind. It's a relatively low number, but it's maybe not completely obvious from the chart. It will be obvious on the next chart. But basically, what it means that just about everybody recovered, right? Everybody recovered. Let me tell you something. The recovery rate in Alberta for everybody is 98.55%. In other words, 1.5%, 1.45% that get COVID, they die. But we must look deeper, because that number is deceiving too. It also depends what is your age and what is your preconditions. And be apparent from the next one, at least to some degree. This is a chart that shows the number of people getting COVID by their age group. All right, so it's not by time, this is by age group. So you have under 1 year old, so infants. Then you have a group 1 to 4 years old, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and it goes by 10 years ever since. And then, of course, the group that's 80 years and older right here. Now, it doesn't take much to see what's happening here. Majority people, like a literal majority, is this group that died on COVID-19, and they were 80 years and older. 1,215 people out of 885. So that's some, I don't know, 65%. 2/3 of all deaths on COVID-19 were for people that were 80 years and older. Then, if you add to it the next group below, that's a 70 years and older, that's another big chunk. Another way to explain what's going on here is this recovery rate line up here. And, 100% recovery is like you get the disease, but you get healed. And of course, 0% recovery is once you get a disease, you for sure die. All right. So even for people that were 80 years older, 80 plus years old, they had a high chance they're going to recover. And the chance is about 76%? 76%. It's not like HIV or tuberculosis or something. This is a high chance you're going to make through it, even though you're 80 and plus. Now, it significantly jumps up when you're 70 years to 80. Between 70 and 80 years, then the recovery is above 90%. And then for the next group, 60 to 70 years old, the recovery is really high. And then from people 60 years and younger, it's virtual, almost 100% recovery. That's the truth. This is the data from the website. Anybody can do this chart by themselves. Now, this is just another way to look at it. It's the same thing. This is deaths on COVID by age group. And the number one age group that obviously suffered the most is 80 and older, 80 years and older people. And again, 65%. If you include it into it, the people that are 70 to 80 years old, then what is it? This is roughly 64, so it's 74%, roughly. 3/4 of the population that died on COVID is 70 years and older. In other words, 70. And let's add to it now also this next group. And if you add that together, then it's 84%. And that's where that's occurred. And it occurred obviously in the younger age group. But why? Probably because of preconditions. And even in these age groups, these people are not just old, but they also have other serious health issues. Maybe they went through cancer. Maybe they have maybe they're smokers. I mean, all these things, of course, contribute to the chances that you will not recover. All right, so we're done with charts. Let me just summarize some of the findings and some of the conclusions. Cause of death in Alberta in 2020, 2021. What is it? 883 deaths from COVID since March 2020 to February 2021. At least that's the number that I got based on the latest data. Maybe slightly higher, maybe 1890 or something like that. But that's what it is. I also want you to, I forgot to mention, it's a pretty important fact. Let's go to this slide. No, one more. I want you to notice that peak of the COVID happened in December, and it basically is collapsing. I will be referring to the fact later on. So it's over. There's no more pandemic. I don't know why we are still closing churches. So now go to the summary page. 27,226 people died in Alberta in 2020, of which 7% is attributed to COVID. But remember that slide, the yellow spot? that would have died anyway. It's deceptive. People that say that if it was not for COVID, these people would have lived are not telling the truth. They're just spinning a certain way. And I don't know why. Either they just believe their own misinformation, or there may be even deception for some other reason. I really don't know. Well, but it's okay. I'm not a healthcare expert, but I can read data, and I can make my own judgment. And I think everybody should. This is also why the Alberta government is doing this open government thing, so that they can be accountable, so that everybody can read the data for themselves. It's not some kind of secret thing. Again, while that may be seemingly high number, virtually unnoticeable on the annual death rate chart, like I said, and like I was a little bit speculating, and when it's 2030 and you want to look back, where is the COVID on the death rate? You're not going to find it. There's not a blip. It's just a perfectly smooth line. So it's almost like it never happened. So yes, I mean, nobody, I'm not saying that COVID-19 didn't exist. Of course it did. People died on it. And, but it's not some sort of a plague that would wipe out civilization or something like that, or kill a bunch of us. And by the way, let's look at the recovery rate. Overall recovery rate, like we mentioned already, 98%, 98.5%. That's including everybody. All right. Now, if you take population 60 and younger, all right, 60 and younger, which is a big part of the population, the recovery is almost 100%. It's almost anomaly if you are 50 or something and you die on it. It's just extremely unlikely. Now, it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. Of course, it happened. That's why the number is not 100%. But who died on it? It was probably not a healthy person. Why is this not a factor in the discussion is beyond me. Population under 70 years old. So let's just move the bar up a little bit, and let's say, what are the chances for anybody 70 years and younger? The chance to recover is 99.75%. Only 0.25% will die 70 and younger. And that's probably because of preconditions or poor health. Or maybe previously suffered disease, like recovery from cancer or whatever. The body is already weak. Next thing to realize, that Alberta COVID curve, we were just talking about we need to flatten the curve. It didn't just flatten, it collapsed. And by the way, let's notice that it collapsed with no vaccines. We don't have vaccines yet. But there are probably some healthcare workers, they do. But overall, we are not getting vaccines, and yet the plague is just collapsing. It's over. There's still numbers, and of course there will be numbers. Just like we have a flu with us all the time, the COVID-19 is going to stay. And it will bug us, but we need to obviously build an immunity system and immunity towards that, and we'll be fine. As a side note, this is not really related to COVID-19, although it is. I heard people saying that suicide, we are saving people from COVID-19, but actually suicides are skyrocketing or something like that. Well, that's actually not the case. I checked the numbers, and it actually slightly decreased in 2020. Not a huge drop. I think it's terrible that 539 people don't have any hope and rather kill themselves than continue living. That's a huge number. That's every day, almost 2 people die. 1.5 people. Every 2 days, 3 people take their lives. So between this presentation, anyway, it's just very sad. It actually peaked in 2015 with 662 deaths. And remember why 2015? That was a bad year. This is where the business collapsed and people were hanging up with the mortgages, people divorced, things were pretty bad. So a lot of people left the world. Pretty sad. And selfish, by the way. Few scriptures towards the end. Philippians 4:6-7. This is God's answer. And one of the things that really bug me is not only some of these draconian policies like closing down churches and beating people and closing their businesses and bullying different people and screaming at somebody that doesn't have a mask in a store. Those things bug me. But one of the worst things that happened to our province, Alberta strong and free, is that we allowed fear to infiltrate our province. And the fear is never good. The fear is bad. And according to Philippians 4:6-7, the Bible says, "Be careful for nothing. But in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God." The answer, the biblical answer to concerns is to not fear, but rather, it's not like just to pretend it doesn't happen. No, let's deal with the problem. But the deal with the problem is in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made unto God. And I wonder, I never heard, at least not for public officials, and I'm not expecting, most of them are not saved. They some of them scoff the church and Christianity. But I know that some of the government officials actually claim they're conservative Christians, including our premier. But I don't know. I don't remember. Maybe it happened, but it's just that is the answer to fear. Not to hide ourselves in homes, close parks, close schools, close businesses, close churches, and be on guard from this invisible enemy that actually is not there. That is the answer of the Bible, of the Lord, to our issues and fears. And he says, be careful for nothing. You can say, don't fear or be anxious about anything. Be not anxious about anything. It's not a virtue to be anxious about something. But now, there's some people so anxious that everybody has to just do as they wish because they are scared. I'm not scared of COVID. And neither should be anybody. Any Christian that is scared of COVID is disobedient to God. If you are scared of something, be scared of God. Fear Him, but not any man and not any disease. We have a reason to be bold and to be confident and live with the hope that we have for a different place and not this world. And this is the promise, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. God actually promised that when we seek peace, not through vaccines and through all sorts of policies and whatever, but through coming to Him for help, then we will have peace. Peace. Instead of worries and anxiety. So that's a little bit about the cause of death. Alberta abortion facts. Let's just summarize what I already mentioned. About 13,000 innocent unborn children are slaughtered in abortion clinics throughout the province every year. And the number seems to be rising. Abortion is the number one cause of death in Alberta. The biggest one we thought was cancer. No, it's the abortions. And it's almost double of the amount of people that die on cancer. So think about how many people you know that they died or they are diagnosed with cancer. And multiply it by 2. That's how many people actually disappear from this world. We don't know about it because it happens in the privacy of a clinic. But these are humans. These are little children that didn't want to die. And whoever actually witnessed, I never witnessed it, but I saw it on TV. The killing of a child that's unborn. It's a creature and it doesn't want to die. It starts to panic. When the tools of the doctor of the abortion professional infiltrates that sacred place and pulls out the baby. Also, I want you to notice, I don't know if people realize that, some people think that in Alberta and Canada, abortion is a right. It's not a right. According to the Morgenthau ruling in 1988, the conclusion that came out that abortion is not a right. It's not a right, definitely, in God's jurisdiction, but actually even under Canadian Constitution, abortion is not a right. I don't know if people know that. What is also sad to realize that with the new leadership at the Conservative Party of Canada, there is literally not a single party in the Parliament in Ottawa that actually has it part of a program, part of its manifesto, to fight for the rights of the unborn. I don't expect that sort of fight to come from Liberals or NDP or Green. It was the Conservative Party that did that. At least on the paper, it doesn't seem that they did much about it. I'm not sure, but now I think it was Arian O'Toole that clearly said that he agrees with the woman's right to choose. So I don't expect any big changes for the future of these unborn children coming from that sort of leadership. Now, that's pretty sad. And then finally, even Vatican, under the new Pope, the Pope Francis, the liberal woke Pope, Vatican is now discouraging its adherents from public protests against the practice in front of clinics and places like that. They don't want that to happen anymore. Bible says in Psalm 139, verse 13, "For thou hast possessed my reins, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb." He was already alive and there when he was in mother's womb. And by the way, in Canada, as far as I understand, abortion is allowed all the way to the end. So it's not like limited to 8 weeks or something, or 12 weeks. The majority of abortions happen between 0 and 8 weeks, but there's quite a few abortions that happen even at 20 weeks. You know, whoever was at the ultrasound to see the baby in the womb, you can see the eyes, you can see everything at the age of 20 weeks, and that's when they kill it. It's completely gruesome. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. My substance was not hid with thee, when I was made in secret, and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. You know, the Bible says that we were made, my substance, my beginning, you know, the little few molecules cells, and then little members, and the beginning of the eyes, and beginnings of the heart, and so on. God makes it wonderfully in the secret place of the womb. And that's where the child grows. And it's terribly that we're invading this area and taking that child out when it's actually God that is doing a wonderful job down there. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being imperfect, and in thy book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. I think what the Bible is talking about here is that everything was already pre-planned and made in a book. When a child is conceived, the full manual is already in that new child. Everything is written there. What the eye color is going to be, what the brown is going to be, what is the height going to be, what is the face shape going to be. It's going to be athletic or musical or mathematically talented. You know, all those things were already there. You know, and that's pretty amazing fact. And we just invade that area. How precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O God. How great is the sum of them. And people that continue with the abortion, just ignorant and don't realize they are fooling with something that God really cares about. All right, and the last slide is Alberta strong and free, as we would like to believe? Well, few facts. If it was not for immigration, population of Alberta would be shrinking. That's the fact. We saw it on the charts. So this is the only thing we don't see the problem is because people are moving to Alberta from outside of the world. Not so much from other provinces, that too, of course, but mostly from outside the world. And of course, okay, some people may think that that will fix the problem, but that doesn't create a healthy Alberta culture and healthy Alberta. That's really not good. And second, and I'm saying that I'm fully aware that I myself am an immigrant to the country and to the province. But this problem is everywhere, and countries are trying to invite people from other parts of the world to fill up the gap. What is responsible for the shrink? We already saw the abortion. That's a big part, but it's a sub problem. The bigger problem is the carelessness about the children, and also this carelessness is a little bit emphasized by this talk about green world and everything like that, suggesting that we are destroyers of the planet, and that children should be reduced because we need less people living in the world. That is such a wicked agenda that has nothing to do with the Bible, and it's completely a lie. You know, the Bible clearly says, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. God wants the whole earth filled, and when it's the right time, He's going to come and deliver man from this world, creating new earth, new heaven and new earth. This planet has not been here 20 billion years, and it's not going to be here in 20 billion years. It lasted relatively little, and it's going to last just a little bit more. But then it's going to be over. But God doesn't care about the planet. God cares for the people. That's what God really cares about, and not some planet. And so the problem is that people kill the children because they don't care for them, or they just don't have them. They prevent it from happening because they just love their career and their cozy life and two incomes and being rich and having fancy life and not have to worry about smelly diapers and spoiled child. So they'd rather not have it, and that's obviously a pretty sad state of mind, and sad state of the province. Alberta effectively shut down businesses and churches across the province despite the underlying evidence, and this evidence was available to the government, and now anybody can see it. I mean, you go have a look at it. I mean, where is the evidence? What is the reason why we shut down everything? And why are we still having the churches closed? Effectively, don't tell me that the churches are open when you say 15%. They're closed. And we had a government that spoke all about the religious rights and accountability and all that, but it just seems that they don't quite have the full power. It just seems that maybe they mean well. They really want to kind of turn the tide and change things and just behave more responsibly and respectfully to the citizens. But the moment there seems to be it almost looks like somebody else is telling them, no, you have to do it this way. Some sort of a unaccountable power that we don't know about, because it's just that's what it seems like. You had a premier apologizing for closing the businesses, and then he closed them just 2 weeks after. 5 years ago, he said we need to, government has to stay out of the business of the churches, roughly something like that. And yet here we go. The government is arguing that it needs to be shut down, even though there's no abnormality in the death rate. And of course, the worst of that I didn't even expect is going to happen. And that's probably what saddens me the most. That we actually went as far as to allow some kind of unelected bureaucrat to take a pastor that did what he was supposed to do and look at the evidence just like I did, maybe not so deeply, but it doesn't take much to realize that basically this whole thing is hugely exaggerated, and decided to open the church because that's what church needs to do. It needs to be open. But Alberta is the first, as far as I can tell, is the first North American jurisdiction that jailed a pastor for obeying God. That is pretty sad. And I'm talking about Pastor Coates. of the Grace Life Church in Spruce Grove, just west of Edmonton, and I think it's pretty sad. And Pastor Coates is having a hearing tomorrow at the Alberta in the Edmonton courthouse somewhere. I'm not sure, and I just pray that somebody will come to its senses and undo this terrible injustice and overreach of the government power. How can we claim that we are Alberta strong and free when all this is happening? So we were definitely eroding the freedoms, and we can hardly argue that we're strong. We are not strong. What makes us strong? Like if we let's say are successful economically, if we balance the budget, those are all obviously important things. But the more important things is what kind of people we are and what sort of province we have when it comes to character of the citizenry. And if the citizenry is willing to just bow down to the power of the government, and the government takes advantage of it and dictates how we should live our daily life, including how we should dress and what we should do, can we go to park, can we sing in the churches, that obviously is a terrible trend. And I worry that this may continue. In closing, Proverbs 29:2, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. I pray that there will be some sort of repentance, some sort of reflection of what's happening, and admittance, okay, we screwed up, and change the way. When the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. I'm afraid that our province is mourning. It's not good. It's not good. I'm sure that some people are not mourning. They don't see it as a problem. Okay, I mean, that's everybody has to decide for themselves where do they stand. But I'd say that things are not reflecting the motto that Alberta has chosen for itself. Alberta strong and free. I truly pray that and hope that better days are still ahead of us. In closing, completely, here's a list of resources. That same list will be copied in the description below the YouTube video. And so I welcome everybody to do their check if I am lying or whatever. Make your own discovery, and feel free also to comment and contribute to the discussion on this topic. I pray that God will bless you all. Please share the video with anybody you think should hear this, and God bless you.